October user group for adoption. It's been an interesting couple of months. We're getting so very, very close to coming out of lockdown. We've got 3 sleeps here in New South Wales, and I know that Brisbane and some of the regional. If you're coming in from Melbourne, I know Melbourne's still in lockdown. Cross fingers, we'll all be out of it soon. And considering where we're at sort of Australia-wise, it's one of the reasons why sort of kicking off the current topic, I suppose, around hybrid work and what that actually looks like. But we're going to get started, and I'm going to put in here inside the presentation. So I've put into comments as usual, just getting started. If you can please stay on mute. I've put the link to this particular presentation deck so that you can actually download it. And I will put on this page the link to the recording once I've pulled it down, and I'll put the share link in here for you before too long. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples here today. I ask that we all be welcoming and open to any questions and viewpoints as we go along. I know this could be a little bit of a hot topic. We've been doing it for a little while now, and even before the pandemic, but it has changed the nature of things a little. So I ask that we be kind and understanding of the differences, and we be friendly, patient, and we use a little bit of consideration when it comes to images and GIFs. My name is Kirsty. If you haven't actually met me before, I look a little different. The hair is up, and the joys of pandemic. I haven't got to be the hairdresser for 4 months. I've got another 2 till I can go. What have I been doing? I've started doing this a little bit for you over this year. This is what I've been busying it in terms of making cakes, having a bit of fun and birthdays and dropping it off around the place that are all being local. I've been doing a bit of a course and doing some learning as well, keeping me busy when I'm not doing work. This is my hobby, to keep my mind active, along with doing some puzzles. What's new? Oh, okay. Now, I know I say we had heaps, and I always sort of start off going, oh, it's not too bad this month, and it gets bigger and bigger as quick as I start to go through. Certainly not as big as last month, because we were covering 2 months off. So I will go through somewhat quickly, strap in for the whirlwind ride of what's actually new for the month. So what's new in Teams in terms of meetings and webinars, the new assignment experience is now through for the breakout rooms. So we can actually assign before and after. So that sort of pop-out screen is now there. We're in public preview for that whole pre-meeting room creation participants. This is all around the breakout room. Plus that public preview now for the presenter support in there. We have on Safari now the 2x2 gallery view for your web meetings in Safari. We're starting to see some of that flow through, which is really awesome. One thing I do particularly love is that restarting a live event. So it's only the producer that can actually do the restart. In the past, if it got accidentally stopped for whatever reason, that was it. It was done. The link was completely dead. It was over. So having that restart of a live event is fabulous news for you guys as organizations out there. I know it just became such a massive palaver. I've seen it where it's gone down and it was just done, and they had to completely reschedule for whole date, time, the whole lot. We can scale the live team events now up to 100,000 attendees, but that's only available when you actually engage the Microsoft team, and you get that assistance with producing and delivering those events. Teams meeting is now available on the Apple CarPlay. I used it this morning. Look, if I seem a little tongue twistery or I'm not quite with it at all over the next couple of hours, it's been because I've been in the Microsoft Airlift conference, which is sort of MVPs, RDs, and we've been on that from 2 a.m. till 11 a.m. each day. So I'm running on very little sleep this week. It finished at 11 o'clock this morning, so I'm a little fried, but I used it for one of the sessions when I went to help my daughter. She'd locked herself out of her unit, so it was a mad dash over with a key for her and my grandson. And I actually used this for one of the conference sessions, so loving it. I really did love it. Something to really take into consideration, very important, there's now going to be a 60-day expiration on all newly created Teams meeting recordings. That is coming in November. So if you do meeting recordings, then unless you do something about it or you change something around the expiration, it will be up to 60 days. Okay, so that's becoming standard. James, you decided to give it a miss? Yeah, kind of really. Oh, there was some cool stuff. Go watch the recordings. They're all there. Teams chat and collaboration. We can now pin a message. So that's something that's a little new. It's in the message. It's not actually a channel. It's not actually conversations. It's pinning a message. Okay. We can now reply to specific message on the desktop, one that was coming and being announced, and it's here. Yay. I kept going to my mobile phone just so that I could do that. It was a feature that I found was really great, especially when there's so many chats going on at conferences and things like that. And there's big, long conversations. I would go to my mobile, but that is now here for the desktop. Okay. What else we got? We've got some new default settings when opening your Office documents from Teams. So these settings, please note that it's only available for those that have actually got, Office version 16 and newer installed and actually activated. So this is sort of going to be sort of an important component in making sure that, you've actually got this available and ready to go, and you can choose your default, which is something that I particularly like for the user moving forward. Power Automate templates are actually being added into your Teams templates. The one thing about this is to take note, it's actually curated based on the type of template you chose for that team scenario. So the flows that will come up, so if it was sort of around projects, for example, then you're going to see things that are going to be very specific to sort of projects and planners and stuff like that. Okay, so take that in consideration. It will be curated. The layout for search, the previous search was sort of everything running in that down that sort of left results. Now it's actually going to be changing a little. So you might be able to see if you kind of scroll in that it's going to be in a tabbed mode now, and it's going to be sort of a bit bigger and flowing. So it's a little easier to read. So that's your new search look and feel. Your content camera is now being launched in Teams, where it's got 2 projection options. So you can have a whiteboard behind you, or you can have document mode. I need to fix that bullet pointing there for you, so that you can show that within Teams. So it's just a bit different in terms of the way that it's actually working. So your camera. Coming to OneDrive, your universal print. So when you're online, so this is in the web, you can now print directly from the web with a universal print. You can actually find your printer and look for it locally. The OneDrive and SharePoint has actually improved its move and copy experience. It's coming out very soon. It was on the roadmap. So this will be the new kind of look and feel flowing in. Thanks for answering, Craig. He's in. Yay. Good to see you there, Craig. The what's new in Planner. So now you're going to get recommended plans. So these are only ones that you don't actually have that's sitting in there, but have got tasks assigned to you. So it will come up recommended down the bottom left hand so that you can put it in and put it to your sort of your favorites, for example. We've now got the ability to move the tasks to any plans. It used to be that if it was in this particular group, you could move a task within the group, but now it's as long as you're in a group, whatever group it is, you can move it now across all the different groups. So you're not stuck to just within the group. So as long as you're actually in it, you'll be able to move through. Okay. So that's actually for the web. It'll be coming soon to the actual apps within Teams. Not there yet, but it is coming soon. The what's new in Yammer, the post on behalf of is actually now generally available. There are some catches on that, so just take a few things, buyer beware on that one. In fact, if you follow Rebecca Jackson, she used to be a moderator in the group. She's actually just put out a little bit of a post. You can see it on LinkedIn, and there's a few other things there. There's been some chats and talks and on the Yammer site around what are the things you need to keep an eye out for. The Yammer emails landing in Outlook do have a bit of a new look as well. Okay, notifications. So we had those nested replies are now fully available. We've been talking about it. They are here. They're generally available across both web and mobile. So you'll be able to sort of have a look at those. You'll be able to see now what you can do around creating and using and deleting and making sure you've got those deep links to it. Okay, so all those things are now generally available. Your official communities are now available for Yammer. So this means you can actually have some different verified sources. You'll be able to see here this little icon, so this verified icon representing that you've actually got an official community. So these allow you to be able to have things like good company-wide for the organization, whether it's maybe driving some kind of strategic value or they're actively managed, because sometimes we can have a name there that looks like it might be for the organization, but it's created by the individual. So this then gives you a full verified check mark. Now, I've put in here from the Yammer blog some really great guides and information that's actually come through recently. I would highly recommend going, if you're using Yammer, and having a look at things like the new, town hall playbook and the internal guide to sort of comms, which is a really good guidebook there. Go and have a look at some of those best practices and a few other things. Now, in terms of SharePoint, there's always a raft of changes that are coming to SharePoint. A lot of these flow through and are talking about things like, whiteboard and planner and lists, and because lists do sit within, although we're kind of seeing them as classed as sort of a separate product, but they're really not a separate product. So it can sometimes cross over other products. We are seeing things like the updated video playback experience for your videos in OneDrive and SharePoint that are coming through, improvements around the text web part. So now you've got this sort of alignment, and the way that it can actually flow around your pictures is coming into play, which is awesome to see. We've also got this navigation switcher in Teams to be able to help and support you in terms of what it looks like for navigation. We've got share a list as a link now, so we can have those lists that are coming through directly from SharePoint and sharing. And lists have got these applied filters coming in now, which I do particularly love to be able to help you and support you in terms of finding your information by applying a filter. Your whiteboard storage is moving over to OneDrive so that you can find your information for later. That's where it's going to be. I've put a couple of links in here around SharePoint and OneDrive of where you can find further information. Okay. Now, there's so much that's going on across the Viva space. Being that new product, there is heaps happening there. Look, it kind of now needs, in some respects, its own user group. I think, it's such a big space. I will try and keep up to date a little bit. I won't try and let it sort of take over. But you now have your Viva Learning. It's actually launched and going into general availability. So I've put in here some general introductions. Don't forget, Viva Learning is very much about this overarching way to be able to plug all the various components of your learning into one space. And you can have it then inside Microsoft Teams, and you can have it at sort of its SharePoint. So it becomes then that one place to go. LinkedIn Learning, there are other providers, there's learning pathways, there's all sorts of things you can plug in. Your public preview around connections is actually now available and out there, and it is you've got the free sort of version of all of this sort of going on, which is really great. It's now, free. That's not the same as some of the other components. When it comes to insights and it comes to topics and some of the other things you're going to need, and including some of these, there are other paid components as well as part of this too, by the way. The Viva Insights, and the reason I've deep dived into this a little bit more, because as adoption specialists, consultants, change managers, I think this is the important part. Look, all that other and learning and training, really important, yes, but when we're trying to gather information, there's a whole heap that's going on in terms of some of the September features. There's the new query designer, which actually simplifies your view, and it does come with the premium for the Power BI templates, that whole query tool there. But there's new metrics for teams. There's some in-person to group, in-group to group. Now, underneath that is a whole heap of what's come into that, okay? I'm not going to go through them all. There are a ton there. I recommend going and having a look at what those metrics are for each one of those. But I have focused a little bit more on what are the scenarios that you're going to get, because I think they're the things that we need to know, because it's all about the scenario. Those metrics are there, but we've got to know what we're going to do with them. So, you know, it's the mix of how we're actually experienced. If they're overload, are they getting knowledge across the channels? Are they actually actively interacting with each other? You know, who are the different personas that are going to be engaging across the various, you know, phases in teams adoptions? Are they socially engaged? Are they driving greater engagement, you know, in terms of the people that you're actually working with? So these are all core components to sort of have a look at. You've also got these new focus hours and multitasking metrics that are coming in. Now, don't forget, a lot of these insights, Viva insights, come from having workplace analytics on top of your general, what we used to kind of have, you know, Dell, you know, but it's sort of your Viva analytics now. It's got a bit of a name change, don't forget. So you are going to need to have sort of purchased components and deal with a, you know, an insights provider, Microsoft through your engagement. But you got this multitasking time consumption. You know, what are you doing as part of your meetings? Are you actually concentrating? And a lot of this will really come into play when we start to talk about hybrid workplace as well. That impact in terms of the multitasking, you know, the adaptation, the meeting quality, and the impact of collaboration on your focus. Okay, so these are all some of those collaborative components that I think are really important. There's also coming very soon in terms of November, the praise history coming. So are you using praise? And, you know, one, is it turned off or on? And, you know, what's going on? Are we actively noticing the people within our business by doing praise? So these are all core components to insights. What's new to mobile? There's a few things that have come in terms of the word. The typing has sort of sped up with text predictions. So if you start to sort of type something based on some of the AI, it will actually put in some text predictions for you, so you can kind of just press, you know, enter and keep moving. There's the dark mode on an Android. There's easily changing your text is a, you know, big one that's sort of coming working from your phone. And Times New Roman has sort of come in, and some of this down here is your default font. Now, many years ago, by the way, Times New Roman actually got swapped out for Calibri. One of those reasons back when was, especially when it came to legal and accessibility, their recognition of I's and ones and L's, lowercase L's, were having some component issues when it was moving between it. So if you are using Times New Roman, do know that it can actually throw up some challenges for you when it came to numbering systems and the reader, for example, accessibility readers and stuff like that. It can cause some problems. Okay. There is, and with having been on Airlift, there's some really fabulous stuff coming down. If you don't have a Champs management platform and you haven't plugged it into your environment, I would highly, highly recommend that you have a look at the Champs platform and recognize your Champs within the business. 1.3 is now out, which actually has a some core components when it came to getting started. There were some challenges in terms of sort of the platforming getting started, but the biggest one that I love, it used to be only 100 champs, which if you're doing really big global programs, you might have a lot more than 100 champs. It's now you can have up to, you know, unlimited, so 10,000, you can have a ton of champs. So there are some other changes that might be coming down the line to sort of help and support that. Highly recommend, go in, have a look. And if you're not part of the champs program and they have a monthly call and things like that, get involved, because they're always talking about what's new there. There was a blog that came out on it was in the tech community. If you don't keep an eye on the tech community around adoption, there's often some really awesome stuff and questions and things that are going on. Someone actually put up I don't know, when to use what in terms of collaboration tools. We often don't like to say this. We kind of talk scenarios, but I would highly recommend that go and have a look. A ton of people have put up all their explanations around what to use when in their organization. So there's some really good pictures and might give you some good ideas for your own organization in terms of articulating how you expect your users to engage in, Microsoft or Office 365. Okay. So one to have a look at. Events, there's plenty of events that are always going up there. Don't forget Ignite is coming up very soon. Look, the Comsverse videos have now all gone live. I put a link in for the adoption videos. It includes Caruana and a whole heap of others. There's some productivity ones as well. Go and have a look at those recordings and sort of get up to date. Rightio, moving over. How did we go? Oh, that was a bit of a longer one today. I know there was a ton going on. Sorry if we flow over a little. We've got some good stuff coming on the panel. So we've got the Teams hybrid workplace panel. I'm going to turn off my video camera here, and let me just go out because we will bring in. We've got a ton of great people. We've got Craig from Microsoft. I'll let them all kind of introduce themselves. James from Telstra, of course, myself, and Roland from Insight. We're going to all talk about hybrid workforce. And, you know, one of the things I'm just going to start with is, you know, well, what is hybrid in the first place? What is your take on hybrid? Just to make sure that we're all actually on the same page around hybrid. And, you know, some of those sort of core things in terms of moving forward. I have a ton of links I'm going to supply to everyone so that we can you can have a bit of a takeaway on this as well. But let's move through. Start with Craig. Craig, just do a general quick introduction. Oh, you're on mute.
Step one myself.
Yeah, step one.
Need to attend one of your sessions, obviously, there, Kirsty. So, Craig Chiffers from Microsoft, formerly a Microsoft MVP, but now working for Microsoft directly. In the Office Apps and Services space, focusing on Microsoft Teams. And my day job is all about helping customers with their Microsoft Teams deployments. Now, that has primarily focused last year on moving people from Skype for Business to Teams. But I think most of you out there now have already made that transition across. And so we're now focusing on Teams adoption, Teams voice, Teams meetings, etc. That's me.
Excellent. Moving forward, James, if you could do a quick introduction.
Yeah, so James is, as you probably already know, but I've been working in the new CNC space for a bit over 10 years now. Started out doing small PBXs, then moved to an organisation that specialised in meeting rooms, and now working for Telstra Purple. So at Purple, I'm helping a lot of customers go from Skype for Business or Cisco platforms into Teams calling. Primarily do a lot of work around calling, a lot of work regarding meetings, and I'm a stoic. I'm very much against a meeting for everything, and I'll come to that a little bit later, I think.
Excellent. Roland, get you off mute.
Yep, don't worry, I'm off mute. I got this Teams thing figured out. I reckon I reckon I'm in the right place to learn about this. Welcome, everybody. My name is Roland Leggat. I'm a modern workplace specialist at Insight, which is a really big partner for Microsoft. Been doing this a while. You can see from the lots of grey hair. When I worked at Microsoft, I was involved in the launch of Office 365, and we spoke about this. Who would have imagined, so many people working from home? I remember doing a keynote, I think circa 2009, on the Gold Coast, and my title of my keynote was "Work is something I do, it's not a place I go." And people were like, "Oh, Roland, that's so fun. That'll never happen." And over the last 18 months, I've had people call me and say, "Really should have listened to you about a decade ago, buddy." But as Craig was saying, we've had an accelerated move when people have. The pandemic's been a catalyst for digital transformation for a lot of organizations. And now we're at this unique position where we are returning to office, not returning to work. I really don't like that people are returning to work. I'm like, what the hell have you been doing for the last 18 months if you're returning to work now?
Return
to the office.
Yeah, that's and most of you should know me. I know, running the user group, I have a company running, adoption programs, training. I'm known as a scenario-based training specialist in the industry. Microsoft MVP, been working and alongside a lot of these guys. I'm also a Microsoft MVP 4 years, running. So with running adoption and training myself, there's a lot that's actually going on. And the one thing I want to state about the hybrid working is we've actually been doing it for a really long time. We've had connected global businesses that have worked alongside and teams and projects. I think the pandemic has just changed some of the emotive nature, the culture that goes with it, some of the technology now, because it's no longer just, we're kind of thinking about a little bit more. We're thinking about how we actually engage people a little better than what we did because of the pressures around it. But I want us to understand, and so there's a ton of research already out there, by the way, that's been going on for a very, very long time. I've put some of the more recent research for you in links into the chat so that you can actually connect to it in terms of some of the latest stuff, because we've been under such a different pressure and we've got newer technology to kind of work with compared to many years ago as well. But hybrid, I want to understand is, it's kind of a mix of, co-located, whether it's an office or a facility or whatever. So it's your, workers, it's a mix of a single person. It can be sort of jobs across individuals, teams, workforces. It's kind of a group of people working from both in office and home. So it's that, whatever that hybrid actually looks like. So we get sort of a hybrid worker, we get a hybrid team, workplace, and hybrid meetings. Okay, so we're going to got 3 components to what we kind of class as hybrid, which we're going to be talking a little bit about all those things. Microsoft have put up some of their research around that workers want more flexible options. And they've talked about this a lot. It's been out there plenty that they're planning to move because of an organization's not up to date and that they're considering their workspaces. So I put it then to, some of the the guys here around, what are the things that you've seen that have become really important to enable a hybrid workplace, devices, and what does that look like? So feel free to chime in here. Craig, I know that you tend to see it a lot in the devices space. And
absolutely, yeah, and I think yourself, Roland, and James all hit the nail on the head. Think about the scenario that we're in right now. Those of us that have our cameras on can see each other very clearly. As long as we unmute ourselves, we can also hear each other very clearly as well. For the past 18 months now, that's the kind of scenario that we've all gotten used to. Think about now taking a step back almost and stepping back into a boardroom where you've got a scenario where you've got a big table, you've got a camera at the front of the room that might be a little bit out of date, some technology that perhaps isn't Teams, and maybe people have forgotten how it works. You put people back into that room and they're expecting to get that same experience as what we've experienced remotely. And of course, that's just not going to happen with what you may already have in your meeting rooms today. As I said, we're all used to being able to see each other very clearly. I've seen, and I'm sure other people on the call have experienced this if they've not already done this themselves, people sat in a meeting room with their laptop sat in front of them with their camera turned on so everyone can see them, but with their microphone muted on their laptop. And so they're using the in-room systems audio, but just so people can actually see you, because that's what we're used to now. So, I mean, part of hybrid working is being able to work anywhere and being able to communicate clearly with anyone and at any time, essentially, so long as you've got a decent enough internet connection. And yeah, one of the challenges I think people are going to see there is when we return back to the office space, getting that same Teams experience that we've all come to know and love in our meeting rooms and in our office space.
Yeah. I've actually had one organisation I know that go, if it's summer in the office and a summer at home, then you do your meeting from your desk. That we won't do it from a meeting room so that everyone still feels inclusive and that you're going to do the same. So then they kind of go, well, why go into the office? I may as well have just stayed at home for the meeting because there's the people component. So yeah, there's some of those components. So any thoughts around that, guy?
Well, we actually, Telstra Purple actually closed our main Purple office. So now we work out of the Telstra building on Exhibition Street if we need it, but our Melbourne office has been completely closed. And our workforce has gone completely remote. It should be important that hybrid working, as people are calling it, is really just a new way for the modern way of working, or new ways of working. And as I sort of touched on before, meetings are not the solution for everything. We've gotten to the point now where we understand that we don't need, little flimsy bits of paper like this to get things done. We have things like Power Apps, we have Teams chat channels, we have tabs, so many powerful tools that are available to us that we can use to get work done, and that we've been using over the pandemic to get work done. There's zero reason at all, as people return to the office, to return to those old methods of working with things, having to get pieces of filling in paper forms. I used to work for government departments. They literally faxed each other forms. Instead of sending an email, they would fax each other forms. I could automate that into a Power App or into a forms document and speed the process up immensely. And it just blew their mind that they could do that. They were just thought that the faxing was the way to go. It was safe, but because the pandemic has shown everyone you can work this way, that we're going to see a lot more of these. Well, I'll just build a quick Excel spreadsheet and make it a tab, or I'll throw something in SharePoint, or rather than everybody standing around a wall with sticky notes or whiteboards, or those in-person collaborative things, I think will dissipate a little bit. Where you're going to see a lot of things going back to the office, but it's that social aspect. So it's all good to say you have the right device and the right equipment. We've all done that over the last 18 months. Now it's going to be about, right, let's keep going with getting our business digitalized, I suppose would be the way of saying it.
Yeah. Roland, your thoughts?
Yeah, Kirsty, you touched on that, the paradox, the hybrid work paradox, with around about, let's call it 70%, depending on which studies, Yes, I want to be able to work from home, but I also want to be able to interact more with people. Okay, so it's going to be like a half and half is what I'm seeing with most people. About spending half your time in the office, about half your time at home. I was chatting to a friend of mine in Silicon Valley a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying they've come up with this new acronym where people are spending, now you figure this out for yourself, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in the office. Okay, there we go. And Monday and Friday at home. And now I think that has some negative connotations, that acronym, but that's what's come through the zeitgeist of people in Silicon Valley who are a couple of months ahead of us with regards returning to the office. But I think that work-life integration is going to be a new way of working.
It was made known to me, and I was chatting with some senior leaders recently, and that engagement in terms of being in the room and in hybrid, which Craig, you kind of brought up. There are a few things there that were really interesting. Then we were having some chats with a couple of different organizations around this. Is that hallway conversation that there's that introduction of how are you, but then at the very end, the people that are in the office get to walk out. That conversation we have as we're walking out of a room, as we're walking down a hallway. That how do you do that then in an organization, a business, that they would do at the very end of the meeting? They'd always make sure that end of the meeting time would be, if you want to stay and you want to continue to have a chat, then please do so, whatever that looks like, and opening up some of the personal, because we are going to have that hybrid and what it looks like. So there are different things that we're going to need to do to replicate, especially we kind of see a real uneven interaction potentially going on. Are there any other thoughts around that, or things that you think that we can actually do to make sure that we can support the human side of what we're going to be doing as part of the hybrid?
Yeah, and Kirsty, I think you hit the nail on the head there. One of the challenges I think we find, or two of the challenges that I personally have found working remotely, are back-to-back meetings, and not having that kind of debrief time as well. The time between walking to meetings, grabbing a coffee with someone, having a bit of a chat. So yeah, definitely a challenge. I find two things have certainly helped me with that personally are. having open slots in my calendar where I literally just share my screen into a Teams meeting and allow anyone to join. And so it kind of gives that experience of someone coming up behind me at my desk and having a chat with me. However, anyone can drop into that meeting. They can see what I'm doing on the screen, and we can talk about anything they want. And the other thing is, of course, having that kind of back channel, banter channel that I'm sure every workplace has as well, just to kind of be able to unload and de-stress a little bit between calls there too, and have a bit of a more of a sort of informal chat.
Yeah, no, I like that thought. Any others, Roland or James, around that?
Yeah. So what we're doing two things I want to point out there. Restructuring of offices on the physical space.
Physical side, really important. Yeah, that's that whole 60% of leaders are looking at that hybrid. What does the physical look like and look like an engagement?
So what we're seeing, Kirsty, is a restructuring of big boardrooms into smaller rooms, like we used to have at Microsoft. Craig, you've got this at Microsoft, but a lot of organizations are still stuck with that legacy. Oh, it's a 16, 20-seater boardroom thing. Now what we're seeing, and where we're getting a lot of work at the moment at Insight, is Teams rooms that are 3, 4, 5 people in a Teams room. And I think that
with the right tech and the cameras and the things that you can see people individually is still,
Yes, the right tech in there, instead of having that, let's call it what it is, a WebEx or a Tandberg environment where I've got that camera in the front doing this malarkey, But when you're in the office, spend time or focus your energy on building and strengthening relationships with colleagues in the office. That's key. When you're at home, spend time on building and strengthening relationships with your family. It's the Ram Dass thing, be here now. I think be here now. If you're in the office, be in the office and focus on that. Have those in-person meetings, that back channel conversation, Craig, so important. So many great ideas are born from collaboration. Very few great ideas in the world are born from individual thought.
Yeah. James, anything on that?
Well, yeah, look, it's sort of really agree with Roland there, and that when you're in the office, try and build relationships, because there's nothing worse than when you're working remotely and you've got some weird and wonderful request from someone you've never heard of before, and you don't know them from a bar of soap. You can bolster those relationships, have events, have brown bag lunches at your office, just to encourage people to get together and meet each other, sit next to each other, introductions, rather than just being a name or a face that comes up in a meeting. They're someone that that you care about, that you're implored to do something for, rather than just another person that's asking you to do something.
Yeah, look, I really feel, my daughter's a new starter in her role, and she's been there now for 3 weeks. It's really tough. There's no physical meeting, there's no walking around and getting to know the culture of an organization. She's getting to know the culture of her kind of the immediate people in the team, but not that wider. What does it mean to be engaged in an organization, which we're kind of seeing dropping a bit. And I know that with teams, we can kind of do a little bit of that when you got holistic kind of groups, the whole organization, but there's a lot that don't have Yammer to sort of understand the culture. There's not, there's some different ways of which we need to sort of think about, and we're kind of, there's some people that are still really falling through the gap that we need to culturally think about in terms of supporting new starters and the way that we work. Because when we look at that 46% of workers are planning to leave, it's what, 1, have you got the tech? 2, do you have the culture to support it? Do you have good orientation programs? Anything else that you can think of that might be around? Because we don't want to see a ton of our really good.
It's the zeitgeist of the company. There's this misconception that working where you work is a personal decision, but it's strongly influenced by your network and your technology.
Yes.
You just say, well, what's the point of me going into the office if the rest of my team isn't in the office? No, it's almost like a peer pressure thing. if these people are going to be in the office on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, therefore I feel obliged, I feel a commitment to go into the office those days. So there's this misconception that it's, and we say this, it's flexible, it's up to you, come in when you want, but, hey, Craig, I'm going to be in the office on Tuesday. Do you want to have a meeting? Then we go for lunch together. So it's not just about you, and it's not just about your technology. And I think if we can get a policy, for the company, and especially with new employees, I mean, that's difficult. This is where Viva's good. I think Viva is going to really help us, where we see technology merging with wellness. Mm-hmm. There's that crossover, that bifurcation of
the
that
connections. Viva
yeah. Or connections, insights, even the KMS, the knowledge management system around topics and that.
Anything else there, guys, that you can think of, Craig or Jane?
I think on that, I think a big one too is if you're enabling that flexible work and you're enabling that users can work from home and they can work from, we say work from home, but we really mean work from anywhere. And I do mean work from anywhere. Yesterday, I was in the middle of a migration while rebuilding the engine of my car. I was at a workshop with oil all over my arms and watching numbers move into Teams. It's changing the way that your business operates to be task-oriented rather than effort-oriented. A lot of businesses still have this, even in the pandemic.
Trust is a big one, isn't it, Jane?
You've got to be at your seat from 9, and I've got to see you until 5. And I think if you're going to offer your staff the ability for that hybrid work, maybe they want that flexibility that they can manage themselves. And they can work that night, they can work in the afternoon, they can work in the morning. As long as they get the tasks done and are available when your other employees need, trust them to do their job. You're not employing a child, you're employing an adult. And they've made it this far in life. You'd like to think they can make it keep going.
But that comes down to a bit of soft skills training, really, isn't it? Because we've got a lot of managers out there that culturally still don't really understand it. I've had them where I've had staff members speaking to me go, my boss has phoned me 32 times today. So, I think that there's still some room and things that need to happen around education being a really core one. I know that when we're under stress and pressure, learning goes often out the window. We just got to get things done. We have to urgently roll over into Teams. I don't know whether, I think it's pretty standard that learning, and when they haven't got the money because they're putting off staff, it goes out the window. But I think it's time that now needs to really be addressed. If you want to make hybrid, successful, I think unless we do go down that road of start to learn to do things a little better, I think we're going to see a bit of a mess.
Yeah, and totally agree with you there, Milena. Look, staff leave managers, not workplaces, is what I'll say.
Yes.
If you find that your employees are not working with your management style, then maybe it's time to look at tools that you can use so that they can manage themselves better, or that your managers can work in the new normal better. Sorry, Craig, I cut you off.
No, that's okay. I was going to point out every now and again when I'm bored and browsing TikTok, I think it's hilarious how those videos of these people who are finding creative ways of wiggling their mouse on their computer to ensure that their status always remains green. I'd be interested to know how many people on the call at the moment are aware or cognizant of their keeping their status to green all the time in Teams.
That was very much my next question. What are the features that you think that are missing or there to support hybrid in Teams? Because I think that's really important. A lot of people don't realize what's actually even there, let alone moving your mouse all the time in a meeting, and it's distracting and frustrating. And
no, get an oscillating fan and tie that to your mouse, and it pulls your mouse back and forth as a fan oscillates. That's my top tip for productivity.
Let's talk what features are there to support us in hybrid.
So, the first one is to not be afraid of your team status. I think some people are afraid of letting their team status fall to anything other than available. For me, it kind of comes down to a cultural understanding of what your team status means. I mean, first of all, green means that I'm available and message me because I'm not necessarily in the middle of something that requires deep thought. So please feel free to reach out to me. I don't have any issues, though, changing my status to focus time, which tools like Viva Insights will do for me automatically. Yep. I don't have issues changing my status to do not disturb or being away. Away could mean that I'm sat here writing something on a notepad for 20 minutes. Yep. So being aware of my team status is both important, but not allowing it to control my life at the same time is also important too.
And you've got your Windows focus as well, you know, things that you might need to do there too, not just Teams, but, you know, it flows elsewhere. Any other features, James, that you think of that are really good supporters of hybrid?
I actually think Thomas nailed it on the head. I use this quite a lot. So Thomas Smart said in the chat, he's a big fan of status messages. And yes, I use this a lot. My status message will frequently say, look, I might appear offline or I might appear busy. It's probably because I'm working in another tenant or I'm working with another client. Feel free to message me. If you can't get me, then call my mobile. You know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with putting information in front of people for them to use. If they don't use it, that's their problem.
Yeah. Now, James, a question on that. Was that something that was, you know, pushed by the leadership within your organization, or was it something that you as an IC or an individual contributor decided to do, to use your status message to update people about your current activity?
I did it from the bottom up. It definitely has not come from the top down, no.
Okay. So, and this is where, Kirsty, a lot of you guys kept using the term managers, and you're right, they are managers. If they are saying, oh, you were yellow for 3 hours today, that's a manager, not a leader. And I do believe that as we see the shift in technology to hybrid work and a new way of work, we also need to see a shift from managers to leaders.
Yeah.
One of the things I loved working at Microsoft was we had such comprehensive dashboards and scorecards. My boss used to say, work whenever you want to, do whatever you want to do. And it's very similar at Inside. You know, as long as you get the results, happy days. I'm focused on output, not on input. Input is a 1950s manager mindset. I feel like I'm in Mad Men or something.
But it's still so prevalent, but it's not going to be relevant moving forward. If you sit in that and you do have a hybrid work environment, it's going to really, you're going to struggle as a manager rather than a leader. You're going to significantly struggle with the new way of working.
Yeah, and that's why I said moving from work effort based working to task based working. If you're getting your tasks completed and that's getting the output, whether your business is whatever they're trying to do, if you're getting the desired output, then your employees are happy, your employees are working well. If they're not getting the desired output, that's when you should, okay, how can we help them? Rather than you weren't at your desk at 9 o'clock. Yeah. That's not the way things are done anymore.
And I think another thing that comes into that, and when I've been talking and speaking with a lot of leaders and I've been talking with a lot of staff and a team and going, do you have things in like Planner so that it's actually there and it's in a public space and they know exactly what you're doing and when you're doing it, ticking off, putting comments in, then they're not phoning you 33 times to see, well, what are you on and what are you doing? And because it becomes, you know, you're transacting and you're being, you know, the way that you're doing is, the third, you're becoming transparent in your transactions and your work and your process and your task management. So the more that you can put in, I think the more that you're then going to get out and to be a team.
Yeah, but it comes down to trust.
Yeah.
If there's no trust, all of the house of cards comes crumbling down. Okay, unless we've got trust, we can build a socio-technical environment as much as we want. But I employed you because you're an adult, I'm an adult, you know what your job is, I know what your job is. If I've got to micromanage you, then we've got bigger issues afoot. Yeah.
I think those one-on-one meetings to design what it looks like moving forward. And I like the Microsoft concept of, unless it's more than 50% that you're not going to be in the office, we don't want to know about it. It's going to be kind of this agreement of 50%, but anything outside of that, then let's start talking. But I think if you don't start setting those one-on-ones on what the new way looks like moving forward, from, Monday in New South Wales, and what does it look like? Because we might then have such a static situation where people just stay home, where really it might not be healthy for them, but they're not sure if they should go in or not, or no.
Mm-hmm. And we're all learning here. I mean, we're sitting on this call thinking we're trying to predict the future of work. There's not enough data points on this. We don't know this. We're going to try some stuff. Some stuff will work. Some stuff will be less good. It'll be suboptimal. And we're going to learn and evolve. And we'll have this conversation again in a year, and we'll be like, Craig, we thought this was good. That didn't happen, did it, buddy? No. Yeah. So, yeah, I know I don't want to sound like Oprah Winfrey here, but it's a journey,
So what is it about virtual meetings that you're not a fan of? James?
You see, you knew that was directed at me, that was. I've written a few things about this, and I'm a massive fan, and I think I stole it from Jeff Bezos. I'm not exactly sure. If you can't feed everybody in the meeting with 2 pizzas, the meeting's too big. But also, I feel that the pandemic has just gotten everybody into the habit of, this was more than 3 messages. Let's have a meeting. And then that meeting becomes a daily stand-up, and then it becomes 2 stand-ups in the day. I've had clients that have literally burnt 2 hours a day on one project in meetings. You have a meeting in the morning, you have a meeting in the afternoon. Why? You've got so many tools these days that you can use to update when you want to update, to chase an update when you need an update on something, rather than grabbing 10 people and suddenly throwing 20 hours of collective business time away for 5 people to give an update that could have been a Teams thread. We have so many tools that are available to us now. We use lists, Planner, you've still got SharePoint, Teams threaded chats. There's so many powerful tools these days. My thing about that is please stop reaching for the let's have a meeting lever. There are so many tools that you can use these days, especially built into Teams. You don't need to grab 10 people for no reason.
And I think that comes down to, guys, and I'll come over to you, Craig and Roland. I think that comes down to everyone's got quite used to using chat. They're kind of leaving a bit of email and using chat, and we've seen that go through the roof, but they're not using conversations to work out loud. So therefore we need a meeting, because they're not. And I think that it's time people really start to understand the way to use Teams properly, because I not many people have actually learned how to truly use it. So that's where it's kind of falling over. It's just chat, fine, but there's like literally crickets in the 100 teams that are being created, and there's nothing in there, and they're kind of got documents, but they're just using SharePoint. They're not using Teams to collaborate, and it's time. I think it's time. Craig, any thoughts on that one? In terms of we don't like virtual meetings or things, features, and
yeah, and I think we touched on this before. I'm not a big fan of back-to-back meetings. It doesn't give you any time to consolidate the previous time or previous meeting, look at your notes, make notes before you move on to the next one. And just to that point, if everyone on the call today, something that I cannot stress enough is to please take a look at your Insights tab inside of Outlook.
Yeah.
In fact, do it after this call. It'll give you not only the ability to schedule time between meetings, to schedule time away, to schedule dedicated you time, concentration time where you can't be interrupted in your calendar every single day. It'll even let you plan your lunches as well. You can block out your 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. slot. So in theory, this meeting wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I think that we've got so used to wanting to see someone's face in the office that we're just flowing it over into a meeting, because then you don't know what someone's doing unless you're in a meeting to discuss what you're doing, but you never get a chance to just sit there and work.
Yeah, and to that point, what I wanted to say with Insights is it gives you the ammunition to go to your boss and say, I was in 40, 50, 60 meetings this week. You can see that I was multitasking during that time. These meetings are pointless for me. I don't have anything to add to them. Please stop inviting me. And your manager can see that information as well inside of Office 365. So use the information to your benefit.
I think that we also need to access sorry, I was just going to say, I think we need to access the productivity score and have senior leaders understand productivity score around the healthy side of meetings and know what's going on in the business. Roland.
Yeah, this Viva, Viva Las Vegas. I'm so hooked on Viva, just because wellness, yoga, meditation is such a big aspect of my personal life. When I see the merging of the technology and the wellness, it makes my heart sing with joy. I'm doing 4 webinars on Viva in October, November, and at Insight we've already done. We're involved in 3 rollouts of connections, because people are desperate. They've got a stale, dry, terrible intranet. How can I make that without having a high total cost of ownership and creating new content all the time? How can I make that dynamic, active, curated content for people? But Insights, I think this is it's a foot in the door for people understanding, aggregating metrics of productivity. People are like, what's Insights? What's Dell? What's Workplace Analytics? And I'm like, think of Power BI for personal productivity. That makes and those, Craig, having those insights to share with your manager is key.
Have a look at the reporting, have a look at the productivity score, get to understand that adoption pack that's actually there, get your head around it is really important. I can see Cameron, you've got your hand up. Anyone's got a question, please feel free to ask or type them into chat. Come off mute, Cameron, ask us.
Yeah, so I generally find is that the major shift to working from anywhere, a lot of clients have forgotten that the use of channel conversations. I sort of say, well, why do we have to have a meeting for everything just to get work done? These sorts of conversations should be a natural conversation that happens in a channel. Then the client says, no, but we've got too many conversations and too many channels. And I said, well, that's what notifications are for. Follow the channels that really interest you, that you want to hear about, and unfollow the ones that you don't. And then I've seen a shift towards actually using Teams with the native tools rather than feel like you need a meeting for everything to get work done.
Yeah, and it's really important as well. That's what I was saying. Lots of chat, but not the channel conversations going on. And if they use it correctly, it will. But as you say, people can feel very overwhelmed by notifications, and there's notifications in so many different. There's the conversation, there's the channel, there's the chat, there's the So you got to know, and then meetings and things like that in chat. So what do you mute? What do you turn on? What do you turn on for all of Teams? Do you get the email notifications? Don't you? Look, if you're new to it, then make sure that it's all on for now until you get used to it. But then you can start to play around with it. I think that people have got to get used to it first and then understand they can change it when they're ready. Pinning, for example, is a really good one that a lot of people aren't doing. They're not pinning their channels to the top as their favorites, for example, so that they can find things easily. That's always a really important one too.
Yeah. The other thing, I think, spending time every day just going through your activity feed and fine tuning that, and stop following stuff that keeps coming up. If you spend like a few seconds here and there just unfollowing stuff that creates noise in the activity feed, then I find people can be more focused. So whenever the activity feed comes up, they say, well, that's going to be something I'm more interested in, rather than the same notifications on the old style channels they're not interested anymore.
Yeah. And look, video doesn't work also for everyone on these sorts of things. We do have the neurodiverse. It is, can be taxing on the brain. So I think also take into consideration, in any hybrid meeting or even meetings that are just fully virtual, that it doesn't always work for everyone, and have that conversation with your staff around what it looks like and expectations around video, chat, how often, how frequently, where does your conversations happen? Because I don't think there's even any guidelines or collaboration contracts or communication contracts as a team to what does good hybrid working look like for your team. Does anyone have a contract like that and what they actually do?
I know our people and culture team are working on it at the moment. We've got a meeting next week But Maria's like really sharp when it comes to the HR and people and culture stuff. And we've got a meeting next week to discuss this. So yeah, but I would encourage everybody to, we got some links to share about a new way of working that, and there's some great documentation and studies on it to help you create policies like that.
Yeah. Well, unless we've got some other questions, I don't see any more hands up. Anything, you can always put them in to chat as well. Jonathan, you're right. Most teams can't run an effective meeting. They've never been trained or taught as to what an effective meeting actually even looks like. And then you've got to have an agreement even on that effective meeting, and then keep agreeing on was it effective or not and tweaking it. And that takes some leadership, and we don't always have leadership. We often have managers, but not
First
leadership.
agenda item of the daily meeting is, do we need this daily meeting?
Yes, absolutely. It's like,
One of my bosses used to say that.
Absolutely. Ask the question, are we doing it in the best possible way? Is there something in Teams or features or things we could be doing better? I think asking that question is really important. Anything else, guys, before we sign out and move on? I know we're going a little over, but that's fine. Got to have a good conversation. Nothing else for now? Thank you. I really appreciate you, coming in. And I know for, James and Craig, you sit very much sometimes on the technical away, but I know that you live across so many facets of this because the technology is there as an enabler. So it's, a really important component. And, Roland, I know that you've been doing this for a long time, even when you're in Microsoft days, and he's done training alongside me and done a lot of work. So I understand there's plenty there.
Keep out in the good part. I put a link in there about the future of work. Microsoft have done a bucket of research into this, guys. And wow, it's, yeah.
Yeah. So those links I did put into the chat for you. It'll be in the deck. I have put some new information in terms of where do you find in the user groups down the bottom. I've actually put the Microsoft Reactor link. They've got so much really awesome content that they're having as presentations every single day that are recorded and put onto their YouTube channel. Go have a look at it. Also, there's the global tech event. So I always put it up on the Microsoft Tech community. There are user groups all over the globe that can be, talking around this space. I did, as promised last month, I've put all my past presentation links in here and sort of the topics so that you can actually go back and have a look around some of the past information and topics that I've actually got there. Now, next month, Tuesdays, which we usually do a Tuesday, it's actually Melbourne Cup Day. We did Friday so that we could have everyone included in the panel today, but I will have it also on the Friday. I'd often do Melbourne on a Friday and Sydney on a Tuesday, so I'm giving Melbourne a bit of a chance because I know that they often like to have the Friday. Unless there's any other thoughts or questions or comments of us or the team, we will leave it there. I'll give you a chance. Thank you very much. I really appreciate, Roland, Craig and James coming in, and enjoying that bit of a conversation. Look, there's so much more that can be talked about in hybrid. It's a massive topic, but cross fingers, everyone's actually enjoyed that. It will be recorded. It will be put into the presentation. If you've got the presentation link in there, I will put it at the end of the session again, and I will also tell you in the chat when it's actually gone live. Until next time, thanks everyone. Appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you, everyone. It's an honor talking to you today.
Indeed. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. See ya.